Hello, what's up everyone, and welcome to another Team Player Gaming video. Secrets of Magic gave us a ton of new spells, so I thought I'd start that series with Cantrips. I'm only going to be covering the new Cantrips in this video. If you want me to do videos on the old spells, let me know down in the comments. So let's just get right into this. Let's start with the Approximate spell. This cantrip is available to all casters and targets 1 cubic foot area within 10 feet. And it does exactly what it sounds like. It estimates the number of a specific item in the area. You must name the item when you cast this spell. The type of object can be as specific or general as you want. But the distinguishing characteristics must be obvious at a glance. The spell is also automatically fooled by objects disguised as other objects. For example, this spell would tell you that copper coins plated in gold are gold coins, not copper coins. This is an okay cantrip. 1 cubic foot isn't that much of an area. About the only thing you can do with this spell is determine how much of something is in a chest or on a table. Which I guess saves time, but that's all the spell really does. It doesn't even give you the exact amount either. This spell is also one of the few cantrips I've seen that does not heighten. It would be a lot better if it did. Now let's talk about the Bullhorn spell. This spell is available to Arcane, Divine, and Occult spellcasters. It takes 2 actions to cast and lasts for 10 minutes. For those 10 minutes, everyone within 500 feet can hear you loudly and clearly even if other noise is around. Walls and doors still block the sound. Also, this doesn't increase the range or area of auditory or linguistic effects. While under the effects of this spell, you also gain a +1 bonus to coerce others and to perform at a large venue. If you heighten this spell to 5th level, it has a range of 1200 feet. If you heighten it to 7th level, then it has a range of 1 mile. This is another okay cantrip. It's good for bards that want to perform in front of a lot of people and for getting a lot of people's attention. It also can be good if you lose your party members in a large city. This spell would be a lot better if that +1 bonus applied to intimidation checks as well. I think it definitely should apply to intimidation. I mean, if it affects coercion, it should affect intimidation as well. But I guess a +1 bonus to intimidation for 10 minutes would be a little broken on the cantrip. I think they probably would have made it a 1st level spell if it affected intimidation as well. The next new cantrip that we got in Secrets of Magic is Galil Blast. It is available to Arcane and Primal spellcasters, takes 2 actions to cast, and requires a Fortitude saving throw. Each creature in a 5-foot emanation around you takes bludgeoning damage equal to your spellcasting ability modifier, and might be pushed away depending on their save. On a critical success, nothing happens. They don't take the damage and they're not pushed. On a success, the target takes half damage. On a failure, the target takes full damage and is pushed 5 feet away from you. On a critical failure on their save, they take double damage and are pushed 10 feet away from you. You could certainly use this spell to push an enemy into a hazard or off a cliff or something. Also, if the opponent wants to melee attack you, they might have to move back in order to do so, which of course wastes an action. But there really isn't much else to this spell. It's just a damaging cantrip that might push the enemy away. Alright, it's time to talk about Gouging Claw. This spell is essentially just the melee version of Telekinetic Projectile. But unlike Telekinetic Projectile, you can choose whether to do slashing or piercing damage with this spell. Also, if you critically hit on the spell attack roll, you get 1d4 persistent bleed damage as well. Heightening this spell by 1 level increases the damage by 1d6 and the persistent bleed damage by 1d4. Just like Telekinetic Projectile, this is just a damaging cantrip. The persistent bleed damage is okay, but to be honest with you, other than doing damage, this really doesn't help out with teamwork. Haunting Hymn is available to Divine and Occult spellcasters. It deals sonic damage in a 15-foot cone with a basic Fortitude save. If the target critically fails the save, it's also deafened for 1 minute. This is just another damaging cantrip. It's great that it hits everything in a 15-foot cone, but deafened is only really useful against spellcasters. And you only get deafened on a critical failure. Damage is important to teamwork, but there are better damaging cantrips out there than this. And now we get to talk about my favorite new cantrip, Healing Plaster. It is available to primal casters only. It takes one somatic action to cast and lasts for 10 minutes. With this spell, you essentially turn a can full of dirt into healer's tools. Heightening this spell to 3rd level gives you advanced healer's tools with this spell, giving you a +1 on your medicine check. You can only use the plaster once per casting of this spell. If you try to cast it again, then the plaster becomes non-magical. This spell is amazing. With this spell, you no longer need healer's tools for anything except for treat poison and treat disease. This is true for the entire party if the party has a primal caster in it. Plus, healer's tools usually requires 2 hands, but with this spell, you only need 1. Also, anyone can use the plaster as long as they are trained in medicine. Next we have Infectious Enthusiasm. Available to arcane and occult casters, this spell takes 2 actions to cast and lasts 1 round. You gain a +1 bonus to your choice of attack rolls, will saves, or charisma-based skill checks. At any point during the spell's duration, your allies can spend an action with the Concentrate trait to gain the same bonus you did until the start of their next turn. The ally must be within 30 feet and must have observed you casting this spell to gain the bonus. In social situations, this spell does not give a bonus to charisma-based checks, as it is considered a faux pas if your target observes you casting the spell. It's really too bad that this spell doesn't heighten, but it's a great buff cantrip, especially since multiple allies can take advantage of it, if only for 1 round. Fantastic battle cantrip, not so much in social situations. Invoke True Name is a rare cantrip that is available to all casters. It takes 1 verbal action to cast and has a range of 30 feet. You must know the true name of a creature in order to use this spell on them. Until the end of your turn, the target is flat-footed against your spells and takes a -2 penalty on saves against your spells. Also, the first time that you damage the target of this spell with one of your spells, it has weakness equal to double the level of Invoke True Name against that spell. This spell could be combined with other spells to really put the hurt on. However, you're not going to know the true name of your target very often, so this spell is okay. The Protect Companion spell was obviously made for summoners. It is available to all casters and takes 1 verbal action to cast. Its range is 30 feet, and you can target your Eidolon or any creature with the minion trait under your control. Until the start of your next turn, the target gains a +1 circumstance bonus to AC. You also gain the Life Block reaction. With this reaction, if the target of your spell would take damage, reduce that damage by 10, but you lose 5 hit points. Even if the target takes no damage because of this reaction, they still take any added effects of the attack in question. For example, if the target is hit by a poisoned weapon, the target still has to make any save associated with that poison, even if the attack itself did no damage. Heightening this spell by 2 levels reduces the damage of the reaction by more, and you lose more hit points. If you want to lose less hit points, you can choose to lower the damage reduction and HP loss to what any lower level version of the spell could do without lowering the spell's actual level. This spell was built for summoners, but you can use it on any companion. It is especially good for companions that have abilities that debuff opponents, like the wolf, which can trip. Another new cantrip that we got in Secrets of Magic is Puff of Poison. This spell takes 2 actions to cast and is available to arcane and primal casters. It targets 1 creature within 5 feet and requires a Fortitude saving throw. The target takes poison damage equal to your spellcasting ability modifier and 2 persistent poison damage depending on their Fortitude save. It is essentially a basic save for both. So critical success is nothing, success is half initial and persistent. failure is full, initial, and persistent, and critical failure is double, initial, and persistent. Heightening this spell by 2 levels increases its damage by 1d8 and its persistent poison damage by 1. This is a really cool damaging cantrip, but that's all it is a damaging cantrip. Overall, this spell doesn't do much for the team. Now let's talk about a great cantrip for social situations, and that is Read the Air. This spell takes 2 actions to cast and is available to Divine and Occult spellcasters. It lasts for 1 minute. As part of casting this spell, you can do a recall knowledge about the immediate social situation. This spell also gives you a +1 bonus on your next diplomacy check to make an impression on creatures that were present when you cast the spell, provided the check occurs during the duration of the spell. You can only use this spell once in a given social situation. Casting it again has no effect. Anytime you get to recall knowledge and do something else, it's fantastic. And the +1 to diplomacy is really going to help out in some social situations. Overall, pretty good out of combat spell. Scatter Scree is a perfect example of a good damaging cantrip. This spell takes 2 actions to cast and is available to Arcane and Primal spellcasters. It has a range of 30 feet and covers 2 5-foot cubes that are right next to each other. It lasts for 1 minute and requires a basic reflex save. You summon scattering rocks in the area. Creatures in the area take 1d4 plus your spellcasting ability modifier bludgeoning damage. Also, the rocks cause the area to become difficult terrain for the duration of the spell. A creature can spend an interact action to clear a square of debris. You can only have 1 instance of this spell active at a time. Casting this spell again ends any previous casting of this spell. Heightening this spell by 1 level increases the damage by 1d4. Casting this spell not only does damage, but it also might make enemies waste actions. Unfortunately, because you can only have 1 casting of this spell at a time, and the squares have to be right next to each other, you really can't use this spell against multiple groups of enemies. But it's still a fantastic spell and should definitely be used. Now it's time for another damaging cantrip. Spout is available to Arcane and Primal casters and takes 2 actions to cast. You can target 1 5-foot cube within 30 feet. Creatures in the area take 1d4 plus your spellcasting ability modifier bludgeoning damage with a basic reflex save. You can change the area of this spell to a 5-foot burst, provided you center it in a big enough body of water. To get this larger area, you could center the spell in a pond or a creek, but not something as small as a puddle or a bathtub. Heightening this spell by 1 level increases the damage by 1d4. They did finally come up with a decent damaging cantrip with the water trait, but that's all it is. If it pushed the target away or pulled them towards you or something, then it would be better. Tame is a pretty interesting out-of-combat occult or primal cantrip. For 2 actions, you can target 1 non-hostile domesticated animal within 10 feet. You improve the target animal's attitude towards you by 1 step for 1 minute unless it succeeds on a will save. Afterwards, whether you succeed or not, the target animal is immune to this spell for 1 day. This spell only works on domesticated animals, such as guard dogs or strays. If an animal's socialization comes into question, the GM decides. Casting this spell at 3rd level increases the duration to 10 minutes. Heightening it to 6th level increases the duration to 1 hour. This spell could be really good for getting past things like guard dogs. Or you could use it on any domesticated animal you want to be friendly with you for some reason. Also, animals tend to have pretty low will saves, so it's probably going to work most of the time too. The last new cantrip that we got in Secrets of Magic is Wash Your Luck. It is available to Divine and Occult casters. It takes 2 actions to cast and lasts for 1 minute. Once while this spell is active, before you roll a check, you can cancel out any misfortune effect on that roll. After canceling that effect, the spell ends and you are immune to Wash Your Luck for 10 minutes. This is one of those spells that's pretty situational. Misfortune effects just aren't that common. Plus, you can only target yourself with this spell. This spell would be a little bit better if you could cast it on an ally. And that's going to wrap up this video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out my Facebook and my Twitter. But if you really want to support me, you can check out my Patreon page. Links are in the description. I will be continuing my Secrets of Magic coverage in the coming weeks, so look out for those videos. And until next time, remember, teamwork is vital.